right? Like even OpenAI, I think GPT store was a little too many people underwhelming, and then their plugin features and memory features, a lot of it didn't really reach product market fit.
The day you understand that bringing value to people for free on LinkedIn is the best way to do it, the sooner you'll start growing. I don't have more insights into the algorithm than the other guy, but I've noticed that posting, commenting, connecting, DMing properly, doing all of that in an organic manner, all has an impact on how much the algorithm will push you. All right, hey guys, welcome to today's Next Big Wave episode. Today I'm with YG, a founder from, a founder in Singapore, currently working on Capco. He's an ex-Berkeley and ex-Harvard MBA graduate. Welcome to the show, YG.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. Thank you.
So it's good to have you. For those of you who don't know you, because we've already talked a few times, but can you give us a little background about yourself, where you're from, what you're working on, what you've worked on in the past, just to get a bit of a background?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the introduction. So I grew up in China, and then I moved to the U.S. For undergrad at Berkeley, where I did applied math, statistics, and then I started working in banking Wall Street for 4 years, and then I did my MBA at Harvard. After that, I joined a software company, a SaaS productivity company called Almanac in Silicon Valley, and then I came to Singapore with an education tech company called VIP Kid. And then around October last year, I started doing Capco.
Cool. So tell me about Capco. Just in a few
Sure.
words, what is it? What are you building? What are your aspirations with it?
Yeah, for sure. So Capco is basically an AI table. Essentially, when you fill out the header of the table in one click, the AI can fill the entire table for you. So an example would be you have, let's say, 20 companies. You write who's the CFO, what's the CFO's email address, what's the size of the company, what's the revenue of it in 2023. In one click, we fill the entire table for you. So it automates a lot of menu search. And what our target audience or our best audience uses for, like today, there are SMBs using it to find leads, enrich their leads, and manage and store their leads so they can basically better find them, qualify them, and enrich them for outreach. And it's a very simple tool. So even the amateurs can use it like a pro to basically find and enrich and qualify their leads and research their customers.
Okay,
Yeah.
very cool. We'll definitely talk about it a bit more because it's a space that's getting saturated. So I'm wondering how you navigate that. But before we get into that, I always kind of like to dig into founders' backgrounds. You know, what made them a founder? So you have sort of the traditional finance guy background. You did well Berkeley and then Harvard. You went into investment banking for a while. So what in that trajectory made you want to transition towards startups?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was doing banking, so the first 2 years I was in a rotation program. The second 2 years I was in investment banking. What I realized looking back to banking is I break down my job into like different tasks. And I realized there are certain tasks I really enjoy and certain tasks I don't really like. I think that's true for most jobs, right? Like we don't like, it's very hard to find a job that you like 100% of it, right? Every single job,
Of
maybe like
course.
70%, 80% of it, or 30% of it, right? A good job may be something you like 70% of it or 80% of it. So
Mm-hmm.
when I look at my job in investment banking, I realize I didn't really enjoy the deal making part. I didn't really enjoy, the sourcing part. I didn't really enjoy, I guess, like changing the PowerPoint part. But what I really enjoyed was actually building models and building these tools and automations in spreadsheet. So I realized, right, I'm not like a perfect banker, but then the part of banking I enjoy, which is more about building things. And then that basically gave me some information and signal that maybe I'm a builder, maybe I want to build like products, right, that can be used by a lot of people. So then, with that thing in mind, I went to Harvard Business School where I started doing internships and joint incubation programs to figure out if building things is really for me. And then, so I did like one internship with Almanac, that software company. I also was building my own little website with Harvard Innovation Lab. And then that what validated my assumption that, yeah, I'm a builder. I enjoy building things. And then that's why I gradually started to do the things I'm doing now.
It's super interesting to me because we started the same place, and I realized the opposite. And I realized I like the people, I like the sales, I like all the qualitative aspects of finance, and the
Mhm.
quantitative not so much. But it still led me to building startups. So
Right, right,
having this a different mindset on it ended up in the same place. But I guess on my end, I'm more on the growth and sort of scaling of businesses versus the grunt work of building the product. So it makes sense though. And so,
right.
what brought you? I know you're originally from China, but what brought you back to Southeast Asia? Because there's a lot of opportunities in the U.S. You did Harvard, so I'm sure
Right.
you could have found really good positions, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Singapore is a great place to set up companies and with great connectivity with the US and Western market. And at the same time, it's closer to many lower cost engineering resources in Asia. So it's basically a good hub. But then for founders, especially for us, most of our customers are actually not based in Singapore. So we also travel to basically two different areas. So I guess the advantage is access to a global audience and at the same time access to lower cost like inputs of labors. So that's why Singapore is a great place. Yeah,
Fair enough. And you've been there since 2022, is that right?
yeah. I've been
Where
there
you
since
joined the
20.
EdTech?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I came to Singapore in 2022, and then it's a great place, great experience.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I love Singapore. I mean, it's one of those places where it feels so perfect that it can attract. It's either you hate it or love it, right? It can be too perfect for some people. They feel like nothing is to be done. Like especially founders, like
mm,
myself. When I go there, I find it amazing, but I don't feel inspired to build stuff because everything is already perfect. It's
right,
kind of
right,
odd like that.
right. So
Cool.
golden
And then
leads for other countries, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
no. I totally understand though. The infrastructure is there, and most of the founders I speak to are in Singapore or Hong Kong. Those places that are well established. But yeah, so you transitioned from being the general manager at this ed tech company, VIP Kid, to
right.
building your own products. So you're kind of riding the AI wave, but I'm sure there's more to it. So tell us about the mindset you were in when you
Sure.
decided to build Capco.
Right. So basically, when ChatGPT came out, right at the end of 2022, I was extremely amazed. Compared, I mean, similar probably to most people. And then immediately I thought it could solve a lot of pain points I had in the past. Uh, and then so there were essentially one pain point I always had, which is this manual data collection. And then it basically is there across many different industries. So for instance, when I was in banking. Uh, I was asked to pull a lot of data into a table or a spreadsheet, manually collecting from like different annual report. So the worst thing I've done was in 2017 at the time, Trump had a tax cut, meaning the company can bring their foreign cash back to the US at a lower cost. So basically the senior person in my group asked five analysts to spend a week pulling S&P 500 companies foreign cash number from their like annual report. Essentially we go into every single annual report and do control F
Hmm.
of different sort and populate them into a spreadsheet. It takes like everybody maybe like 2 days, right? And five people together. And then similarly, when I was a VIP kid, I had to do some outreach. I also need to do manual data search. We were targeting potential partners in Taiwan. We need to pull a list of like Taiwanese companies that also targeted the same sort of users as us with some criteria of their size so that we can collaborate with them. And that's a lot of manual search of just constant Google search. And I realized with ChatGPT connecting to the internet, and also other data sources, you can essentially do that in one click. And that's basically what our tool is doing, essentially automating these manual data collection. And also, we also have some special insight on spreadsheet, right? How to make spreadsheet easier for people to use, right? By not by writing complex formulas, but by just writing like simple prompt in the headers, right? And then it makes spreadsheet way easier for people to use and access. So I guess these two insights combining together is basically where we why we created CapGo. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's such a no-brainer when you explain it this way. And it's funny because I meet a lot of people still that think AI is a gimmick, and they've interacted with ChatGPT by asking the most basic question, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's not that impressive." But when I see people like you building stuff like that, which save, I mean, thousands of hours for big corporations, or even like the way I use it now, it's really conversational, and I just brain dump on it. I create a knowledge base of myself, and then I can kind of query it. I think there's so many things to be done. So how difficult is it for you to educate your ICP on the fact that you're really solving a big problem? Are they receptive to it? How do you get about it?
Right. It's actually a great question. So initially, when we built the product, to be very honest, the ICP in my mind was actually the bankers and consultants who have to collect all of these data. But then when we launched, right, initially we launched on Product Hunt. And then Product Hunt, we have a lot of actually startup founders and SMB owners using our product. And then because we're so small, we haven't been able to effectively to do enterprise sales into large banks, which has a lot more compliance
Mm-hmm.
requirements. So then basically we're automating these data collection tools, not for the bankers, but for the SMBs. And then their biggest manual data collection task is not to pull data from annual reports for analyses, but to pull lists and enrich lists, but to pull leads and enrich
Mm-hmm.
leads and basically outreach to leads. That's their biggest pain point in terms of data collection. And then essentially the interesting thing about like table, right? It's more intuitive for people to understand than a black box of like one click. That's also something when we realize is sometimes one click is not the most intuitive and easy solution because people can see what's going on. It's like that's
Mm-hmm.
why some people find tools like Zapier difficult to use because it's hard to figure out what's going on. Versus a spreadsheet, maybe you have to do multiple steps, but it's very clear what's going on. So our tool has been pretty intuitive and easy for SMB founders because they've used spreadsheet and table before, and they see our tools more intuitive. Yeah.
I love it. So I love the product hunt growth hack. By the way, I try to push that on my clients as much as possible because I think it's super smart, especially in the B2B SaaS space.
Yeah.
Have you tried things like AppSumo yet, or is that in the pipeline?
Yeah, that's definitely in the pipeline. Because you
All
also
right.
mentioned that in the past. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely in
yeah,
the pipeline.
I'm a big AppSumo consumer personally, and I think if you have a tool like yours, it's just such a no brainer. You're talking to marketers, they're your ICP. But let's talk about numbers. Like, are you a
Sure.
funded startup, first of all?
Yeah. So we got Safe from Antler around October last year. So they're our investor now. And then we also got into this Google AI startup program where they give us a lot of like AI free credits of
Okay.
Gemini. Yeah.
Sweet. And are you planning to fundraise? Like, what are your numbers in terms of growth right now, in terms of users and
Sure.
whatnot?
Yeah, so after the Product Hunt launch, we got over the past 4 months, got over like 4,000 users. And then we started doing paywall around 2 months ago. And then now we're growing around like 50% every month, which is pretty fast.
It is.
So our ARR is over 10K USD now. We hope to grow like even more in the next few months. And then the goal is start doing another round of fundraising, maybe starting the next month. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, congrats on those numbers. It's definitely promising. How are you dealing with the fact that, in the AI space, there's a lot of stuff like this happening? I mean, like, for example, there's even for Google Sheets, right? There are plugins now that allow you to tap into ChatGPT and other LLMs.
Right.
How do you deal with the fact that there's so much noise in the space right now?
Right. I think in terms of AI space in general, right, I think there are a lot of very interesting features, but then maybe 70-80% of them don't have product market fit. I think there are a lot of cool features. People, when they first look at it, they thought, wow, it's so cool, but they don't know how to use it. Uh, and then it's not just from startups. I also seen large companies doing similar things. Right. Like even OpenAI, I think the GPT store was a little too many people underwhelming. And then their plugin features and memory features, a lot of it didn't really reach product market fit. So for us, the most important thing is we want to make sure we're really solving a problem for a specific customer, right? It's not like an imaginary customer. We need to find customers who say they want to pay for this feature and we build it for them. That's our easiest way forward. And then and then also in terms of the sales space, right? There are a lot of tools now with this AI SDR, AI BDR, but then the difference is basically a lot of them are built for the super technical B2B sales, like Clay Apollo of the world. But then
Hmm.
for a lot of founders like me who are essentially amateurs for sales, right? Never really done sales before. for me to be able to do things in a very intuitive way, I think Capco is really designed for these people.
Cool. So let's talk about that. Do you use your own tool for your outreach, or do you have any use cases where you actually use it day to day?
Yeah, so I use it for outreach. I use it for outreach different from what our target user use it for. What our target user use it for is they basically pull a list of companies and they enrich, they figure out their information, like company research, like who's the CEO, size of the company, and different qualification like data fields, right? Let's say if they only want to target companies in Indonesia or US, they only want to target company with like 50 people or more. They basically use our tool to basically filter and qualify these leads and even write customized messages and find their email. So that's the most common use case. The way that I use it for is more to find essentially sometimes before I talk to a VC, I pull their information or I pull VC information in that space. Or when we try to do like go to market KOLs, I use that to pull KOL lists, get to know KOLs. So I use it not as a way to directly sell to an end customer, but as a way to find partners in order to basically grow our business. So that's the difference. It's also partially because our tool is not it's more of a PLG. So we're essentially doing marketing, not really doing B2B sales. That's why we need partners for marketing
Hmm.
more than selling directly to an end user.
Cool. And is that your strategy for growth? Are you still figuring out what's your biggest growth sort of source in terms of, you mentioned B2B, B2C, partner networks? Like, have you started identifying where your biggest drivers are?
Right, right. So far, a non-repeatable way is basically product hunt, right? But product hunt you can only launch like every 6 months, and then the experience from other founder is the benefit goes down gradually, right? Because the first time you launch, you get a lot of publicity from a lot of like directories. They index you for the first time, but the second time,
Hmm.
they're not going to index you again because you're already on their platform.
Right.
So the benefit goes down, but that part of Hunt by far has been the best source, but you can only do it like every 6 months. Uh, so other things we're trying is basically content. The idea is because we are a spreadsheet or table tool, people organize their information in a table format. A lot of time, these user-generated table are very valuable, not only for them but also for other people. Right? If I have a list of say 30 top incubators in the world, their application deadline, their check size, a lot of other people also want to see it. Or I have a list of let's say 50 like AI startups in Southeast Asia, right? Other people, VCs, other people want to see that list. So basically,
Hmm.
we want to grow by using these user generated content either through SEO or through some sort of social media, so that people can come and see those content.
Okay.
And also, another way that we're experimenting is basically using search engine to target some of the more heavy lifting, complex tools, and we say we're an easier, cheaper version of them.
We
We
should
see,
talk because, sorry to interrupt you, but I just thought of something interesting. You mentioned like creating content and turn that into like a content strategy, which is leveraging your own tool. And I think that's super smart. And a lot of the time, I'm big on LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn for me is everything. And I think we've talked about it. And I see you posting a lot more on LinkedIn. We should get to that in a minute. But
for sure.
one thing that works really well on LinkedIn is lead magnets, right? And you're sort of putting a paywall towards getting that type of information. And the paywall is basically getting an email. And
Mhm.
a lot of the time I struggle to build my lead magnets because there's so much information I want to research, but so little time. And a tool like yours could develop these lead magnets essentially on demand and super fast. And whether you give them away as part of your content strategy or you paywall them behind like an email request, I think that would be an interesting strategy for you, specifically if you can find content that is extremely valuable in the sense that it's not super public, and you think outside the box on things that people might need that is not like one Google search away. So I think
Mhm.
that would double up like as a lead magnet, A, and
Mhm.
B as a proof of the fact that your product works really well, right?
Right. And lead magnets, you mean these high quality contents? Is that what
Yeah, so like you're talking about like a list of the top top funds in Southeast Asia that invest in fintech or whatever. Like
Right.
you can tailor it as much as you want, and you can create a list of a bunch of different lead magnets you want. And then all you do is you post on LinkedIn the fact that you're giving it away for free. All they have to do is, follow you, connect with you, and you'll send them to them via DM. That's like a lead magnet that I use. And it's worked really well in the past for me, especially like launching my course, my startup scaling course on LinkedIn. I just created a lead magnet where I was offering a 5-day email course around it. You might have seen it.
Yeah,
And that got
I'm
so
part of
much
your
momentum.
subscriber. Yeah, I'm your subscriber. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So that had a lot of momentum, and basically, just from that alone, I was able to get 70,000 impressions. I was able to get 500 signups to the course, and that's
Wow.
just like creating an email course in like a 5-day piecemeal email course, which is going to be like the foundation of my course that I'm launching in June. But essentially, it
Wow.
was product validation, lead magnet, etc. And you can create that about anything. I follow a bunch of LinkedIn influencers these days, and they'll paywall anything. They'll be like, "Oh, here are like the top 300 investors in Southeast Asia," and then just connect with me, like this post, and I'll send it to you. That's like a growth strategy to get more followers on LinkedIn, and then to get leads on people who are interested in that product. And then you can just tell them, well, I actually built it using this tool, and you could build it as well. Like just sign up to the tool, and you'll be able to do it. We could come up with a content strategy around that for you as well. I
Yeah.
think that would work really well.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, yeah. We should talk. Sounds like a great strategy. At least the one that you tried for your course. Yeah.
So yeah, tell me about your LinkedIn, because I've seen you be more active recently since we spoke a few months ago. So
Sure.
have you, like, what have you done there?
Right. So, out of all the social media channels, LinkedIn is by far the best for me. I have like very few followers on Twitter because I never used it before I started this company. But on LinkedIn, because I've used it for 10 years, over 10 years. So I had initially, before I do this, I had over like around 4,000 followers. So
Mm-hmm.
so so I had like a decent base to start, and I had pretty high quality connections because my time in banking in like HBS at Berkeley. So that was a great starting point. And then I've been experimenting different things. So initially, I just announced our launches, our Part of Hung launches to gather votes for Part of Hung.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I try to basically list some useful content for people, for my target audience, basically. And sometimes I just post about some thoughts on AI. So basically, so far, I tried many different strategies, and then I haven't built a systematic machine of LinkedIn. It's more of like things here and there, anything useful. Some posts has a lot of likes. Some posts has like relatively been quiet. It's also how useful uh, my posts are. So what I realized, I guess, after posting is I have to make my post useful for other people, right? It's not just about me, how great I am. Is more about creating things that other people find useful for them. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think like the day you understand that bringing value to people for free on LinkedIn is the best way to do it, the sooner you'll start growing. Because I'm also fairly new to LinkedIn. I just received a notification that I've been on LinkedIn for 16 years, but
Wow.
like realistically, I've used it like moderately for my last few businesses. With TendoPay, I did use it when they introduced like LinkedIn bots where I could follow 100 or 200 people a day and then send them connection requests, send them automations, like those basically spammy messages now that I think about it. But 5 years ago, that was kind of all the hype because no one else was doing it. So you were getting really good response rates.
Right.
And I managed to grow to maybe 8,000 followers in a few months. But I realized that's not my ICP today, right? And like
Right.
3 months ago, when I started my journey on LinkedIn officially as a founder for founders, I had to grow my ICP from scratch. Like I had maybe a few hundred founder friends on LinkedIn, but that was about it.
Right.
And it took like serious posting for about a month before my ICP started noticing me and starting figuring out like, oh, this guy brings value. Let's at least give him a follow, right? So I realized that all I have to do is bring value. Even if my posts are not the most beautiful, the best written, at least if I bring value and also bring stories about myself where they can relate, that will start being a foundation. And that's how I started essentially.
Right, right. Yeah, great
So
insight. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I highly recommend, like, if you're really going to be serious on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
start thinking about it like 3 posts a week. One post is stories about you as a founder, your journey. Like, you don't have to get too personal, but just talk about your journey, your transformation from Berkeley to Harvard to IB to like what we talked about today. You
Mhm.
can create so much content about it. Just talk about one specific thing that led you to move to Southeast Asia or led you to go from IB to this. And people will understand your journey, your founder journey, and relate to you as like, okay, now he's building this product because of this. Like, I can relate to that.
Mhm.
Second thing is you build content that is valuable for your ICP, meaning like
Mhm.
what you've done, like a lot of screen recordings of you building like a list of
Mhm.
XYZ, right? You show them how to do it and you talk about the process in the post plus the video. And the
Mhm.
third is maybe validation. So you say, I helped this founder like land his first major deal with a VC thanks to using like our prospecting tool, kind of like that. And you
Mhm.
do that once, like one post every 2 days, so 3 posts a week essentially, and
Mhm.
rotate with those posts. That's your foundation, and I think that should start a really good trajectory for at least your authority on LinkedIn. Then there's a few other things you can do, including like connecting with your ICP and starting real human conversations rather than just spamming them. But I
Right.
think that that's a good way to start.
Right. So you mentioned the first is about my story. Second is how are to help other people to
Yeah.
be successful.
Uh,
What's the second one again? Sorry,
so
I
the
missed.
second one is like essentially like building value, like showing how your tool works and how you can bring value to people. There's
Right.
one like success stories already, and one is really like key features of your tool, like show them use cases,
Right.
constant new use cases, and see which ones stick. And the one that stick, you double down, you show even further. You know what I mean?
Got it. Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
keep it simple like that. You don't have to go too complicated on your content story or your content strategy quite yet. That's a
Right.
good foundation. And then the other thing is, I would spend every day 30 minutes following either authority figures in your ICP industry. So it can be anyone from like, you're targeting SMB owners. Like Justin Welsh is like a well-known guy in the space. Like, find
Mhm.
20 of those guys who are influencers and then bring value in the comment section. Don't
Mhm.
pitch your product constantly, that's a no, but literally like respond to their post and bring value so that people will eventually click on your profile and see who you are.
Um.
So that's like 30 minutes a day. You just comment valuable insights into posts of your ICP or into like authority figures, and you can
Right.
create a list of people to follow on
Mhm.
on what's it called, Sales Navigator, so that you
Right.
can just browse through it and then answer them pretty fast. And don't use AI because like everyone hates AI comments and it's too obvious.
Right.
And then the third thing is make sure that your LinkedIn profile is literally an optimized landing page. So
Right.
I've I'm on your LinkedIn profile right now. It's quite good,
Mhm.
but it's like you have to really think about it like as if it was a web landing page. What
Mhm.
are the steps for people to take? Like they see what you do, what you offer to whom, where do
Mhm.
they click? So for example, right now you don't have a click to like view your website or whatever. You don't have a
Right.
button there.
Right.
You're not using the about section enough to describe your product and how it brings value to your ICP. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of things there I would change on your LinkedIn profile because I'm
Right.
sure you're already getting views on your profile, but once you implement a proper strategy, people will visit it like a lot more. So you need to leverage that, and you need to make sure that all the inbound that you get it upstream. And then
Mhm.
finally, anyone who engages with your profile or with your post or anything like that, make sure to
Mhm.
start a conversation with them to see what's up. You can be as basic as like, hey, I noticed you like my post, appreciate that. Anything you want to learn more about, be happy to write about. Like, and really human to human engagement. So
Right.
all of this sounds very manual, and it's like
Mhm.
that's the blocking point for a lot of founders. They're like, well, I have a bot that will connect with people and send them a message. I'm like, if you want to go that route, then you're not going to get the most value out of LinkedIn. You'll just get some value, not the best.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Quick question on the comment, right? So the way that people notice me by commenting people is I assume some viewers will view the comment area, right? Is that
a
how
lot
it
of
works?
people do. Yeah, a lot of people do. And Also, what will happen is that, okay, so if you have connections in common, like you and your ICP, you've connected with a bunch of people,
Right.
you both follow Justin Welsh, let's say, and you've commented, they'll
Hmm.
see his post and your comment. That's the way the algorithm works. So
Okay.
people will start saying, oh, this guy brings value here and there. And like
Right.
the algorithm also is going to start thinking of you as like an authority figure yourself, because
Hmm.
I mean, I don't have more insights into the algorithm than the other guy, but I've noticed that
Hmm.
posting, commenting, connecting,
Hmm.
DMing properly, doing all of that in an organic manner, all
Hmm.
has an impact on how much the algorithm will push you as a person.
Wow. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, great
Yeah,
insight. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Great insight. For
I
sure.
think also like something fun for you, and I'm sorry, I have all these ideas as we're talking
Yeah.
because I really like your product. I've seen it before. I
Right.
think you could have like live sessions, live work sessions with your ICP. You can even host them on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and you just run through a bunch of use cases, and you try to engage with people. Say, hey, like, would like what are you struggling with? Like, let me help you. Let me build it for you right now at live, and show them how easy it is. And like, first of all, you don't have an audience yet, but like, start with a bunch of use cases and do them live, and then
Hmm.
that can be posted on LinkedIn and stay there. But you can also have it like live streaming on LinkedIn. And then
Right.
once people start asking questions, either during the live session or post live, you can
Hmm.
start building those. And like, that's what content creation is all about, is using your community and your audience as tools to create even more relevant stuff. And
Hmm.
with your tool, you have so many things you could do. So like
Hmm.
creating that value for them and keeping improving or finding new things to build around their request is just going to get you an audience that is captivated and then turn into sales, because you'll bring value and they'll understand how to use your tool. It has so many benefits, right?
Right. So a live stream, right? So live stream is when people, when I'm doing live stream, they can, when they visit the feed, right? They will be able to see me and
Yeah,
get
they'll
in.
see you as live. So you can be live on LinkedIn, you can be live on YouTube, whatever you want. But
Right.
all you need to do is like the first live you'll ever do, probably no one will listen or one or two people will log in, but
Right.
like you prepare a few use cases that you're already quite robust with,
Right.
and you just do it live for people. You're like, okay, so this is what I like for someone who's trying to get all these leads for this and that. This is how you find the leads and how to enrich, etc., etc. So you build like a quick 5 to 10 minute use case for maybe 3 or 4 use cases. Then that'll be posted on LinkedIn after the live. You'll just leave it on, and from then, if you have any questions, that'll be used for the next one you do. And try to do it once a week or once every 2 weeks, and
Right.
that'll get you more and more eyeballs. People will be curious about it, maybe ask about a next use case, and make sure that every time you have like a clear CTA that explains like, if you want to build more, you just go through the whole process on the website and whatnot. I think
Right.
that would be valuable content. I would listen to it because it's
Hmm.
literally what I do on YouTube is like try to find tutorials and new ways to make my life easier and to build value for me and my clients. And if you
Right.
do it for them, then you just become that authority figure of making workflows a lot easier.
Wow. Yeah. Great. Great insight. For sure. Yeah. Should start trying live streaming. It's like super popular actually in China, but never. But for selling, I guess physical goods. Could sell
Are you
software.
comfortable on camera?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a founder, you have to learn, right, to be comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I agree. I think as a founder, like one thing that I'm really passionate about is founder led sales. Like when
Mhm.
founders already try to hire a sales team and try to get everything done for them early stage, it's a bad sign for me. I think investors should flag that as well, because the founder should be the salesperson for a long time. Even look at Elon Musk; he's number one salesperson at Tesla for sure. So
Yeah.
it should
For sure.
never stop.
Yeah, it could also be a actually interesting point for you and your client in a way that a lot of founders don't know how to do sales, especially when companies are small. I think selling to large enterprises, I think there's certain playbook and skill sets that's repeatable. It could also be a interesting insight.
What kind of playbooks are you thinking that could be leveraged like that?
Yeah, so I thought about two things. When I was at like business school, they have a class called entrepreneurship sales. I didn't take it, but a lot of founders who took it like thought it was useful. And then the other day, I looked at a boot camp on LinkedIn. Someone posted that teaches you how to sell to large enterprises as a startup, because that has been a barrier that we have, right? So when we try to marketing was more intuitive for me. because I did mostly like B2C companies or PLG companies. As a small company, at least in my mind, right, when you're small, it's easier to sell to other smaller guys. When you're a large company, it's easier to sell to other larger companies. But then how do you sell when you're relatively small to a company with a high unit price, right? Is something I honestly don't know how to do. And then I think if someone tells me a repeatable playbook, like the one that you have about LinkedIn, right? It could be super valuable because a lot of startups for us, right? Every single like purchase is like $20, but then if I can somehow sell to someone for like $2,000, right? That's like 100 customers, right? To enterprises, but then yeah, but then I think it has some playbook and skill set that I don't fully know. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a good one we could think about. Maybe we have an offline chat about it at some point and
sure.
discuss.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Any other growth strategies that you found successful? I know you mentioned Product Hunt a lot, and I know it's such a good one. But like anything else you've noticed, have you done any digital marketing? Has it worked out, or is it too saturated these days with all the AI tools?
Right. So, based on me talking to the founders, for many these SaaS productivity tools, KOL, like influencer marketing work really well because a lot of time it's hard to essentially tell what your product does exactly in like a tagline on Google search. But then
Mm.
if people see a short video of it, they can get it like 100%. So, KOL marketing works for us for part of Hunt Launch, a lot of KOL or a lot of influencer also posted our things. I think that brings in a lot of leads as well. So KOL works. And also, there was a Chinese social media called Little Red Book. I use that also to target non-Chinese. So for WeChat and Little Red Book, they actually have a lot of Chinese people outside of China who can use our product. It's also an effective tool for, I guess, Chinese founders who want to target overseas Chinese. Um, yeah, so
That's
those are
cool.
two things. Mhm.
So speaking of KOLs, what kind of KOLs have you worked with? Because I can already think like, you're a spreadsheet. There's that Excel queen or whatever her name was who was making millions of just showing little tips on Excel. That seems like an interesting KOL to work with. But what's your experience with these guys?
Right. So basically, most of our KOL now has been. I've tracked them on Twitter and LinkedIn. Most of them has been organic because of our. So we launched on Part of Hunt twice, and then when we are ranked very high, like number one or number two, some KOLs report us through their link on Twitter. I collaborate with one or two KOLs, like paying them like a few $100s. And then, to be very honest, I think there are things. Yeah, I think to find the right KOL is not as simple because I feel not all the KOLs are genuine, especially their followers. Maybe some of the followers are like, I don't know, bots.
Mm-hmm.
And then not all of them are in your target audience because let's say if we want to target like North America or European customers, maybe their followers are not really from that region because SaaS is more for developed market, not really for developing markets. So a lot of it, I think there are a lot of it's not as straightforward in a way that I think people really have to vet the KOL and make sure they have follower in your target ICP geographic location and they have genuine followers. I think those are key. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough to work with KOs, and you're so right. There's so many. It's ridiculous because I was talking to a guy who hires KOLs for his crypto projects, and he
Mhm.
mentioned to me that they only look at one number as number of followers. But
Mhm.
then I was looking at some people he worked with, and he paid them a hefty amount. The
Mhm.
engagement on their post was absolutely garbage. I mean, they had 500,000 followers and sometimes 5 to 6 comments on the post, and I was like, did you guys not look at the engagement? Because that looks like it's 99% bot. So yeah, I mean the KOL game is still very very weird for me, and the fact that you have to pay up front rather than have like an affiliate program or things like that is a bit sketchy to me.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And also geographic location matters because sometimes you see like a huge engagement, a lot of likes, but then maybe they're from certain part of the region where there are a lot of viewers, but not your target audience. That's also matters a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. Fair enough. Cool. Yeah. So a lot of topics, and I love talking to you. So definitely we'll keep talking offline.
Yeah.
So yeah, before we close, do you want to sort of do any shout outs, personal or for business?
Um, well, thank you, Tim, and then my co-founder and our team. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and
Amazing.
thank everyone.
And I'll definitely post a link to your product because I think it's a really cool product. So when the episode comes out, there'll be a shout out there. And in the meantime, YG, take care and thanks again for being on the pod.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Have a good day. Thank you.